Hello and welcome to the In the Money Players podcast. This is our show for Monday, August 25th, Travers Day recap. Peter Thomas Fornatale back with you, still up here in Saratoga Springs, joined by a man coming to us from the planet Texas, but not the man you always see, but you do often see him on here after these big weekends, going to be helping us mine through the evidence for Breeders' Cup clues. You know him from InTheMoneyPodcast.com and elsewhere. He's Nick Tammaro. Nick, what's up, my man?
Doing great. Fun weekend for sure. Now just one more to go at the old spa, a couple more at Del Mar, so it feels like summer is beginning to wind down.
And as the summer winds down over the years, the thing that I probably comfort myself with the most is, okay, summer's over, got to go home, school's back, but Breeders' Cup is coming. We can hear those footsteps. And, you know, I think that's definitely something that's top of the brain after we saw so much win and you're in action at Saratoga over the weekend, no more so than in the case of the Travers itself, where Sovereignty, I think at this point, I can say it definitively, put together a performance, a complete race, running at all stages, impressive to the eye, impressive on the clock. I'm okay with this horse as your current 2-1 favorite for the Breeders' Cup Classic. What did you think of this effort? Am I blue skying him too much, putting him as the clear top of the market at this point?
Yeah, look, this upcoming weekend will be huge in terms of sorting out where these horses land and where they are right now. Obviously, seeing Nisos journalism, fierceness, mind frame. Now we're getting Sierra Leone. We're getting all those. I think I said Sierra Leone twice. But either way, you know, we'll learn a lot more. So this conversation actually might be a little more interesting next week because almost all of them at that point will have had their final prep. So we'll kind of know the real principles of the Breeders' Cup Classic. But I guess I would say it to you this way, Pete. If I told you that Magnitude was going to get headed outside the quarter pole and begin to back up, wouldn't it have been a disappointment if Sovereignty didn't win by 10 lengths?
I hear that. I hear that logic. I mean, the main rival on paper was kind of a no-show, but it's one of those things where it depends on if I'm just going to trust what my eye saw Sovereignty do or how much I'm going to worry about the rest of the field. And when the figure comes back 115, it just makes me a lot less worried about anything else I saw. When I see him lay so close to a serious speed horse and then blow him away like that, I'm inclined to just give him the full marks for the assignment. You're the man who does such a good job for us here on a regular basis, helping us interpret these speed figures. I know it wasn't the easiest day to make figures. What do you think of that 115? I'm getting the sense that maybe you're not fully buying into it by the fact that you're making that comparison vis-a-vis the main competition in the race.
Yeah, it was kind of an odd day just because there was a track speed change. So basically the Bayer team opted to change the variant after the 6th when those two turf races were run, the Lake Placid and the allowance race that Gallant Greta won. And they had it slowing down by about 12 points at that point. So the rest of the races were run with that variant, but the Bookham Dano race actually came up really slow and was adjusted upwards. So, I mean, I think it's believable on Sovereignty. I don't really have much reason to doubt it. It came back awfully fast. You know, do I think that Bracket Buster ran 13 points better than he did in the Haskell? I guess. I think there's also a pretty decent chance the Haskell was a better race than we thought right off the bat. I'm going to say that as far as goal-oriented and Gosger go, we won't see them for a bit more. But obviously, we'll see journalism on Saturday in the Pacific Classic. So, no, I buy it. You know, it had all the makings of what's necessary to be a fast race. It was a legitimate pace. Sovereignty took over pretty early and really ran all the way to the finish. So it was a very, very solid effort. He is a horse that's obviously very comfortable at Saratoga. He's been able to take his game on the road, but he does look a little bit better now. Well, not a little bit better. He looks a lot better now than he did earlier in his 3-year-old season. So really the question is, how does Bill Mott keep him where he is right now for 10 more weeks? That's the whole thing, is that, you know, these horses they don't stay in form forever. And obviously it has a lot to do with fitness and conditioning. And right now he's at his absolute peak. So can he stay that way for 10 weeks, plus ship 3,000 miles, plus face better horses, bigger field, faster pace, all of those things? That's the question. And the way you answer that question determines exactly what kind of price you'd be looking for on him.
Yeah, those are legitimate questions for sure. I mean, the thing that I think, thinking about him, even before this race was on record as saying I thought Sierra Leone, not Sovereignty, should probably be the favorite, or at least co-favorite for the Classic. One thing I'll say after the race is I feel like Sovereignty showed how non-pace or setup dependent he is in a way that I think the jury's still a little bit out when it comes to Sierra Leone. You mentioned that idea about keeping him informed for the 10 weeks. One thing I think that's in his corner as far as that goes is his trainer. We've talked about some other very high-profile trainers who famously haven't been able to keep their horses in the top of their form. This is something we've seen Bill Mott do over the years, especially when there are targets involved. And we know that sure sounds like from the day after the Derby, the campaign was mapped out, and the next step on it, if I'm not mistaken, is the Classic, right? He's not going to run between now and then?
He is not. No, he's going to go into it fresh, which, has unfortunately become kind of the normal thing now with horses that run in the Travers. So he'll go into it off a 10-week break.
Yeah, and if that was made up on the spot, I'd be a little questioning of it when that was presumably the plan from the day after the Kentucky Derby, and it's Bill Mott making the decision. I'm just a little bit more willing to give that kind of credit. I'm not saying I'm in a hurry to bet him, by the way, at the 2-1. There are many, many questions as you bring up, but I have zero issue with him. I mean, if I was a consultant for a bookmaker and they were asking me about the prices, I don't think I'd want to be laying him any higher than that. Let's put it that way, based on what we've seen. But yeah, it's going to be fun. And like you said, we're going to have so many more clues coming up after these next couple of weeks as well, when these other horses get going again. So and when you talk about it's unfortunate, this trend, I mean, from a racing fan point of view, I completely agree with you, by the way, but I just feel like Mott at this point, to me I just defer to him when it comes to matters of how to campaign his horses. I mean, I know there's going to be a vocal minority who feel even more firmly now than they did before. Hey, this horse would have been a Triple Crown winner, and they feel a little bit robbed of getting the opportunity to see that special feat. But yeah, I feel like I could just as easily argue it the other way. Would he be running a 115 in the Travers and poised to be a 2-1 favorite in the Classic had he run those 3 hard races in 5 weeks? It's an unknowable, but I'm curious to get your take on it. Where do you stand when you think about Sovereignty and history? As a traditionalist, as someone who loves the Triple Crown races, is there a little bit of a bitter taste in your mouth regarding that?
A little bit. I think it would have been a different Triple Crown because of the distances and it being at Saratoga. So not being a mile and a half. Not that this looks like a horse that'd have a lot of trouble at a mile and a half, but it would have been a little different. I mean, it was nice to see it happen. I don't know. I think the difficulty of it is that I think the Triple Crown is more important than it's ever been before, but I don't know if winning the Triple Crown is more important than it's ever been before, if that makes sense. So I think the Triple Crown races are so well received. They're so popular. They're such a big deal that, Mott doing what he did stimulated this conversation that just does not need to be had. If you're talking about a terminally ill patient, you're not worrying about whether they have their nails painted. And that's kind of the thing that we're focused on when we start talking about Triple Crown spacing as something that we need to make a big move about. So the only thing I'll say, and I don't want to be like Debbie Downer, I don't want to cold water or anything, but the only thing I'll say about the situation with his particular wins, the last 2 wins, is that they're both 5-horse fields, right? Where he had very, very soft trips, slow to moderate paces, not a situation where he had to overcome really any kind of adversity at all. So I'm thinking that needs to be kept in mind, because obviously this objective in the Breeders' Cup Classic next time is going to be significantly more difficult.
Yeah, he'll have it he'll if he does what he's been doing in these other situations, in that situation, I don't think there'll be too many doubters left at that point, because it is.
Oh, no question about it. No. I mean, if he goes out and wins the Breeders' Cup Classic, then it's going to be something altogether different. It's partially the social media age, but everybody seemed like everybody was trying to one up everyone else on their takes about who he's the best horse since.
I was going to ask you that next.
Like the best 3-year-old since Sierra Leone.
Yeah. You won't go any farther than that. We played that game. We played that game on Sky, Best American Horse Since, and I quickly looked at the figure. And when I saw the figure, I said, "All right, I'll give you Best American Horse Since Flightline." But I take
that's fair.
Yeah, I take your cynicism though, because Flightline, I guess it's also like it depends on how much you want to penalize Flightline for not doing it on that 3-year-old stage in the Triple Crown and for running so infrequently. Not that Sovereignty is, out there. Not that he's looked like some kind of iron horse or anything, but I do think there's something in terms of the capturing of the imagination. To your point about the Triple Crown races,
right?
He gets extra marks. He gets extra marks for that. But I mean, it's going to be fun to see. I can't wait. I mean, it's going to be one of the great stories of this year's Breeders' Cup, no doubt about it. It's shaping up to be a classic for the ages.
A classic, a real classic, no doubt about it. Best classic field we're looking at in quite some time.
Yeah, I can't. The brain isn't going right to the right answer when trying to answer that particular best since type question. Because
we haven't had the 3-year-old participation, and that's what makes it fun, right? Is the 3-year-olds are finally facing the elders. For him, it's going to be first time against elders. For journalism, it's going to be second. But still, I mean, there are 3-year-old fringe players right now that are good that are going to be 30-1 shots in the classic.
Yeah, exactly. Would racing be better in America if the clash of generations happened earlier in the season, or is there something cool about the Breeders' Cup being the time when we get to see the rubber meet the road as far as where these 3-year-olds match up to their elders?
I think a little bit of both. We would benefit from them being earlier. There was a point in time where it happened in races like the Jockey Club Gold Cup.
Right. That used to be the race.
Unfortunately, that day's gone. Curlin ran in the Jockey Club Gold Cup and beat Lawyer Ron in 2007, which wasn't that long ago. But now, I mean, it's unthinkable that a 3-year-old would run against older horses before in a race in the eastern part of the United States. Because if you don't run in the Travers, you're going to run in the Pennsylvania Derby. Right. So I'm glad the Pacific Classic is coming up as strong as it is. It's a deserving race. And yeah, I mean, the concept and the idea of the Breeders' Cup being the time where they all came together is great, but it wasn't supposed to be the only time.
Yeah.
It wasn't supposed to be the first time.
Yeah, I hear you. And of course, you can't talk about 3-year-olds facing elders without another quick mention of the Pacific Classic. What kind of vibes are you getting? What kind of field is journalism going to be facing out there? What's your early take on that potential test?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Fierceness shipping over is a big deal. He's looking for a little redemption off a poor effort last out in the Whitney, and might find himself in a scenario more so where he can dictate terms to everybody a lot like he did in a way in last year's Breeders' Cup Classic. Not necessarily dictating terms, but close to the pace where he likes to be. He's a horse that likes to pack up his ball and go home when he doesn't get it his way. But this could be the right kind of situation because Nisos will probably comfortably sit a little bit off of it. Everybody raved about Nisos' last workout. I imagine he'll still go off probably a somewhat solid favorite. I would think among those three, I don't even know who else is going to be in there, but I would think among those three, you're probably looking at like 6-5, 2-1, and 5-2. Probably, it looks like they'll dominate the market for sure. And kind of just stuff 3 more in the gate, Pete. It'll be a good 6-horse race.
Yeah, you get those 3, you're going to have plenty of bones for us to pick after the fact. There's no doubt about that. We're going to have a ton of coverage later in the week. Hopefully we can pull you in, Nick, for that. We're going to have JK talking about the big racing there. We're going to pull in, he doesn't even know this yet, but we'll pull in Dean Kepler to do some analysis as well. He does such a great job for us. But let's examine some of the other Breeders' Cup clues that we got on Saturday. And you alluded to the slow figure that Bookham Dano earned in the Forego. Came back at 98. I thought it looked pretty darn strong. Thought it was a terrific ride. I thought that he did the business. I was surprised that this figure, compared to the 106 and the 111 that we saw the last 2 times, didn't quite measure up. But as you were saying, it really seems like it just wasn't a fast race, no matter how you slice it, in terms of what you'd expect from a grade 1 hero like him.
Yeah, it played out like a pace that really took its toll on the horses that were forward, because, I mean, they really all dropped out tamely. And that included Mulligan, who ran his worst race by a mile in quite some time. So I feel like part of it is that Bookham Dano was as engaged as he was early. He seems to be a more involved horse pace-wise under Paco Lopez, and it must have just been that pace was a little bit stronger. I'll tell you this much. If you think the track slowed down again, then that means Sovereignty ran even faster than a 115.
Right.
So that's the thing I would remind everybody, is that if you think it's 5 points low, then you can give Old Sovereignty a 120, and now his PPs look a little bit different. So it'll be really interesting to see how some of these horses come out. I'd be most interested in seeing some of the the forward horses that won't come back with LASIK. So like, how does Mulligan run back? How does Hold My Bourbon run back? You know, the ones that were well beaten, but were forward. If they run back well, then I think you can believe it was just a fast pace. Bookham Dano ran great. And in Scotland ran, you know, about the type of race he would need to in order to get in the mix, as did Crazy Mason.
Yeah, I think you want to give Bookham Dano some extra credit for being the only one who is up anywhere near that pace who was finishing. So even if it is just a 98, it's not like I'm going to take Dano next time and say, oh, I'm expecting him to be going the wrong way. I still think you can expect him to run a representative race next time. Is that fair, or are you looking to oppose?
No, I think that's fair. I mean, you've also got to look at it in context too. The sprinters across the country aren't running fast races, right? I mean, I don't know if we're going to get a chance to talk about the Pat O'Brien, but kind of 93 fake,
right?
So I mean, it's not like these horses are very good. The Lovesick Blues that won the Bing Crosby, I think that wasn't much more than a low 90s or so. So yeah, it's just they're not a fast group right now. The best of them likely are on the East Coast, and it's probably a combination of Bookham Dano and the 3-year-olds.
Yeah, and we'll get to the 3-year-olds, but that's such a good point. We're talking about how slow this race is by Dano's standards. Still 5 faster than what we saw on the West Coast, and that's probably all we need to say about those West Coast sprinters right now, right?
Until Straight No Chaser comes back, yes, that's all we need to say.
Let's talk about the Ballerina, where I thought tactically, I fully approved of what Flavien Prat tried to do, putting Scylla into the race early in a race where once those scratches came in, especially, it looked like she was going to be ceding a tactical edge to Hope Road. I thought she ran a good race. Hope Road just ran a better race, and a race that set up absolutely beautifully for the two at the top of the market. I didn't really get the market enthusiasm for Claret Beret, though I do see actually was 2-1 in the end in the spot. I was going to say the 2 on paper that looked like they were going to run 1-2 did.
Right. I do have to correct myself real quick. Lovesick Blues got a 105 in the Bing Crosby, so I do not want to shortchange him.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. I should have corrected you on that.
Right. No big deal. Probably edit that out. It wouldn't be the worst idea, but whatever. We can leave it.
We're going to have to leave it in because it's video.
Right. So Scylla, yeah, I agree with you completely. I thought the Pratt ride on Scylla was outstanding. Did not expect it, but she was a horse that a little earlier in her career did have some speed. And Flavian's been doing a lot more of that. He's been doing some atypical things with regards to horses' prior running styles and what he asks of them that day. Hope Road got the run of the race, being outside, latched on top of her. Nobody else really ran at all. And I agree with you completely. The Claret Beret support was totally out of nowhere, made no sense to me whatsoever. And I'm pretty sure that Chicago at Churchill is a stinker. And now it's no question really now, because Vava came back and lost at Charlestown at 1-5. Claret Beret came back and ran poorly. My Main Squeeze did come back and run well against New York Reds, but was horrible on Saturday. Ended up getting eased. So yeah, it just wasn't much of a race, I think. And as far as these horses go, you know, if we have Kopian reinvented as a sprinter, which I think is the case, Ways and Means is going to get healthy and run in the Gallon Bloom, hopefully after she missed with something minor. Kopian and Sweet Azteca. This is a good group for the Filly and Mare Sprint.
Kopian's figure was so good going long. I wasn't sure they were done with that experiment, but you're hearing they are going to cut back and go Filly and Mare Sprint.
Yeah, that's what Mandela said last week, that he flirted with the idea of bringing her to the I generated a lot of chatter on Twitter with my post about him saying that he thought he might drain the tank if he ran her in the Ballerina. And I said, well, 10 weeks before, I mean, that's a long time, you know?
Oh my goodness. I mean, these guys, the modern game has changed a lot, no doubt, but it does sound a little wild when you're hearing smart guys say stuff like that.
And I'll rant for about 20 seconds on it. I'll tell you the other thing that has to stop is people have to stop acting like these guys speak ex cathedra. Like, stop acting like they've never been wrong. I don't care if they have a funny hat or there's somebody who's very charismatic or all of these different things. They make mistakes just like we do. They put horses on the wrong surface, the wrong distance. They use the wrong riders. They do it all the time. Stop acting like they don't. Bill Mott would probably laugh at himself first for the number of times he had horses on the wrong surface. Richard Mandela has done it plenty of times. He ran Venganza, who I bet down the hill in January, 1 3/8 last week. Like, this happens all the time. Stop. Well, I'll just defer to the Hall of Famer. Who are you to question them? I mean, come on. It's ridiculous, right? It's ridiculous. Of course, they're open to criticism and questioning.
Yeah. I think you can do both. I mean, I do, and as I think I did with Mott earlier. At the end of the day, I'm not going to say that I know more than him, but at the same
Hell
time,
no.
I'm not doing anybody any favors by just deferring. It's like we got to bring this stuff
Of
up, and when it
course.
sounds
Right.
crazy to us, we can say it, and they can ignore us and go on and continue doing their jobs. I mean, it's like it's everybody plays their little part as far as that
Right.
goes.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about these 3-year-old sprinters. I do feel bad about that Lovesick Blues thing. I had completely forgotten how
Me
big
too. That was a bad mistake, but no, that was a good effort. And Hijazi was supposed to run back in the allowance race yesterday and got scratched. So I don't know if we have any run backs otherwise from that race. Well, Dr. Venkman got a 95 that day and came back with a 93. Crazy Mason got a 92 that day and came back with a 95. So the fig looks good so far.
It's looking legit. And I mean, it's always strange when you see a 7-year-old pop a number like that who's completely. I mean, what's Lovesick Blues' second highest dirt figure? I mean, it's not within 10 of that, is it?
No, he had gotten a 93 at least in his last 5 starts. Right. But have no fear, Pete. His trainer's giving him 14 weeks off to the Breeders' Cup to make sure he's ready for it.
You're killing me. All right, now that I feel like we've given that horse the due and gotten the digs in, let's talk about Patch Adams and Captain Cook. It was a 103 figure in the H. Allen Jerkins. And I mean, these are progressive 3-year-olds doing what they probably always wanted to be doing. How much more improvement do you think a Patch Adams can have? Hey, on its face, he's a contender in that race based on this 103. And you can obviously tell a story where this 3-year-old's going to get faster. What do you think the ceiling for Patch Adams is? And let's not leave without a word for that extraordinary run from Captain Cook, who's clearly improved for the new barn.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Really, really ran well. As far as Patch goes, he's always wanted to sprint. And once Brad Cox really decided consciously after the 2 route tries, and we're just going to sprint him, it's worked out well, right? I mean, he's undefeated around 1 turn, and Luis Saez gave him an excellent ride. A little credit where it's due to Jonathan, who predicted basically exactly what happened on Friday's show when he and I were on Steve Bick. Of course, the horse was favored, so I mean it's no surprise. But with Jonathan, but all kidding aside, he said, I hope he gets an inside trip, a la Practical Joke, and it's exactly what happened. He came right up the inside. Luis never panicked about being down there. He's a horse that Luis, and I've said this before. Luis will make an easygoing horse look like they're being ridden harder with his style. But Patch Adams really feels like a horse that you've got to really get going. But once you do, he really hits top speed and can maintain it. And so he did. And I thought he looked good. I thought he's clearly a sprint division player. I don't see why 6 furlongs is going to be a big problem for him. I think he's better probably at 7/8 because he gets that full benefit of the last furlong. But I don't think 6 furlongs is a big issue. And Captain Cook ran really, really well. I mean, that was a heartbreaking defeat for a horse that got better in his first start for Todd Pletcher. Kind of leads you to believe that he should have been sprinting probably for a little bit longer than he did. But Rick Dutrow did the right things in trying him in route races. He kind of earned his way there when he won the Withers. So it'll be nice to have him around. And these horses look like the next wave of as far as next year's sprint division goes. And hopefully a lot of them will be back. You fear with those connections that Patch Adams might end up at stud. But it sure would be nice to have him because that could be a really good group in 2026.
No doubt about it. Some exciting sprinters for sure. Let's talk Torpedo. Anna 100 Beyer speed figure in the personal nets, and that all went according to script. But maybe not so much the stretch drive where Darth Vader did absolutely everything but win. My heart was in my throat being largely singled to Torpedo in the first leg of that graded stakes pick 5, but we got away with it in the end. She prevailed by a nose, but I didn't think this was a bad effort. It felt to me more like the other horse just breathed.
This was the second best race of her career, in my opinion. Now her top 2 have both come at Saratoga. So I thought her Travers was her best race ever. I thought this was her second best race ever. And I say that because, she's 3 wide on the chase. Pace is strong. The other 2 speed horses are absolutely nowhere. She blew the race open on the turn, took on a fresh challenge. Darth Vader ran great. Darth Vader's a horse that on her day can be very good, can be capable of a high 90s to 100 speed figure. So I thought Torpedo Anna looked really good. And it was great to see that one of the biggest turnarounds of the year was, when we stood there late on Oaks Day and she ran like she did, it kind of the natural
game set match.
It's over, right? It's done. Her as a top level older distaffer is over, but all the credit to Kenny McPeak and his team for getting her back and doing it while probably running her in the only races she should have been in. She was probably supposed to run maybe normal circumstances. She runs in the Phipps, then she maybe runs in the Shuvi and the personal Ensign. So she ran in the Fleur de Lis in the personal Ensign and got the job done. Got another grade 1, just a really an outstanding race mare. And she certainly won over this Debbie Downer, as Kenny McPeak referred to me once on Twitter. But I admire the performance quite a bit.
Very, very funny. So you made a joke about Jonathan with the favorite. So I had I was on I mean, it's terrible red boarding, but it's to get to a punchline. Like a lot of public handicappers, when a lot of favorites win, had a pretty good day with the with the 5-timer. At some point, somebody did complain that we were picking too many favorites. And I'm like, so you want me to give you losers? Like I get, if I'm picking favorites and they're running up the track, like I'll take the fire and maybe even apologize for not being more creative. But when they're all winning, I don't really know what you want me to do, people.
Yeah, I mean, look, one of them was a 5-2 winner, so it's not like Patch Adams is a short price. It's just, these races, some of them, the ones that really looked super competitive on paper were to me were the Ballerina and the Jerkins, and they just ended up being chalky. Hope Road's better than I thought, and Patch Adams is probably a little bit better than I thought, or maybe some of the horses I thought would run better aren't as good as I thought. But the personal Ensign felt like it was likely to be chalky. The same thing, obviously, with the Travers, and we all thought Bookham Dano. I told Jason Beam on his podcast last week, I thought the value in the Forego was playing Scotland underneath. So yes. I mean, that was where you could inject a little bit of value to it. And $21 for $1 on that exacta,
great exacta,
pretty good to me.
Yeah, no, that was terrific, and that was also discussed on air. I have to give credit where it's due. So we had a really nice hit finally for the ITM Inner Circle bet share. But if I had been left to my own devices, Nick, we would have been singled for our whatever it was, $100+ pick 5 to McAfee, because I punched the 5 in the original set of tickets and not the 4, at which point, thank goodness, I could say this for a lot of reasons, but thank goodness for Mikey P, Mike Proposi, who just texted me slyly, Sovereignty's the 4, right? I said, yes, of course, just kidding. Meanwhile, I'm frantically canceling tickets and putting them back in. So all credit to Mikey for saving. I'd be in witness protection if I cost the people that kind of money.
Yeah, that's definitely something that needed to be done. So thank God for another thank goodness for Mikey P.
Great stuff, Nick. Appreciate you coming on the show today. If you're on the In the Money Media YouTube channel, click around. We've got a lot more videos for you. Make sure you subscribe as well. And if you're listening on the audio side, we are going to be back with more content right now.